You're listening to the best local sports show. Boots, Bats and Balls on Six Towns Radio.
Okay, ladies and gents, thanks for coming to Vale Park this afternoon. As I mentioned, we will have a collective press conference followed by short one-on-ones, but if you could ask the majority of the questions in the conference, that would be appreciated. I'll now hand over to Bob Young from Begbie's trainer, who will introduce the top table and give you a little bit of background information. Bob.
Thanks, Joe. I think most of you know me now. I'm Bob Young. I'm one of the joint administrators. Steve Curry, my partner from Begbie's trainer and joint administrators, also with us at the back of the room. On my left, I'm pleased to introduce Paul Wilds, who is with his partner Norman Smurthwaite, the new preferred bidder, and now has exclusivity for the acquisition of Port Vale. On his left is a chap who needs no introduction, Micky Adams, whose valiant work over the last couple of months has made it much easier for the administrators to have a little squabble of interested parties, thanks to the success on the field. And on his left, Steve Grocott from Grindeys, who is the solicitor acting for Begbie's trainer, who've done sterling work all the way through that, and we've asked Steve to be here in case there's any, if you ask any difficult questions, because he's the lawyer and therefore the intelligent one. A little bit of background. As you know, we as administrators have been here far too long. We did think we'd sold the club once, but unfortunately Mr. Ryder was unable to complete on that transaction. Having said that, every cloud has a silver lining, and perhaps because of the publicity that we've generated, or that generated, there have been a number of new interested parties come forward. Paul and his colleague Norman Smurthwaite are probably the most recent party to come to the table, but they have impressed us with the speed with which they've done their due diligence, their plans for the whole of Vale Park, not just the football club, the fact that they've done exactly what they've said they would do when they've said they would do it, the fact that they said they would sign heads of terms with us last week, which we did on Friday, the fact that they said they would pay a £100,000 deposit to ensure exclusivity, which they have done, and therefore I believe that Port Vale will have a very bright future if we can conclude this transaction. The sale price has been agreed at £1.25 million. That is all in cash. There is no deferred consideration. I've been shown the money, so I'm sure it's there. And there's no reason to believe that Paul and Norman will not be deemed suitable parties by the Football League. We've already mentioned their names to the Football League, who don't appear to have any problems with them, although it has to be stressed it has to go through the Football League fit and proper person test before the sale can be agreed, because as you know, there has to be the transfer of the share in the Football League and also the share in the Football Association before formal completion can take place. We have, on Paul's behalf, submitted the fit and proper persons questionnaires to the Football League for himself and Norman. Since then, the financial information that the Football League asked for has been provided, and we believe the Football League are going to start their due diligence to check on the suitability and the business plans of the new company over the next week or two. We would like to complete by the end of October. Paul is very keen to do so. Whether we can do that is largely down to how quickly the Football League and the FA can move in providing permission to complete within that time scale. Before I hand over to Paul, rather than me tell you his background, suffice to say that we're very happy that he has the wherewithal to do this, and a very successful business background, which leads me to believe that he's really in a position to take the club forward, not just because he's got the money, but he's got the sort of nous to know how to take the club forward properly. But I'd like to just thank Micky and his coaches for such a fantastic start to the season, for working so well with us as administrators in what's been a difficult time, and I'd like to convey my thanks to all of the staff at Port Vale who've been quite magnificent, and also to the Supporters Club who are represented here today by Pete Williams, by Gary, by Martin. So they'll be available for questions afterwards, but suffice to say we've had their help all the way through this, and thank you guys for your assistance in communicating with the supporters. So without further ado, I'll let Paul tell you a bit about himself and his plans for Port Vale once we achieve completion.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll start by saying that I'm very pleased to be here. We started our due diligence on the club about 2 weeks ago. I attended the Gillingham game, as well as I came here last night as well, and I've been very impressed with what's been happening on the field. I'm even more impressed by the potential of the stadium and the land and building surrounding it, and the commercial activities that could be brought to Vale Park, which is one of the reasons why I'm very interested. We've got some synergies with some of the businesses that we currently own that will help develop the venue into more of a 7-day-a-week venue instead of a 3-hour every other Saturday venue. The facilities here are fantastic. We're coming into a club with, or what will have, no debt, will own its own ground, which I think is relatively unique up and down the footballing world. We're coming to it with ideas around how we can develop the off-field activities of the club to try and make the commercial venture a successful one over a number of years. I think one thing that's important for me to say now is that the decisions that we will be making today and over the coming years will be ones for the long-term interest of the football club. We're not a business that needs to have short-term cash flow decisions. Don't need to be made here. What we will be looking to do is make decisions that are for the long-term benefit of the club, and that might mean the paybacks. We're talking about years, not months, but certainly something that we'd be looking to implement. So I'm very excited to be here. I think it's probably best that I'll leave it to you guys to ask me questions, and I'll answer them. So I think it's probably worth passing over to everybody else now, Bob, unless you want anybody else to say anything.
I think it's probably best to open it up for questions.
Paul Lakeman from BBC Radio Stoke. I'll start with the most obvious question. What was it that, apart from the potential of the club, what was it that made you wake up one morning and think, yeah, I want to invest my money and become the new owner of Port Vale?
I think the answer to that is that you'll all be aware I've looked at football clubs for a while now. I actually think at their core they're an undervalued asset. So I think there's an opportunity to look at the land and buildings and to look at the business side of a football club and say that over the years they've been historically not very well run, and there are opportunities to commercialise a business and bring about relatively normal business practices in other industries that haven't yet reached football. And I think we can bring those practices to Port Vale, and what I'm looking at is a business and a football club that's in a division it shouldn't be in. It is a sleeping giant almost, to coin a phrase, and we should be looking to make that on-field activities that Micky's already done to the start of the season. Obviously that had a big impact on it. Makes it a much easier decision when you're looking at a club that's successful on the field, to try and then say, well, okay, what can we bring to the table? And we think we bring a lot to the table.
When can you actually start working with the club now? Because obviously we've got to wait for the deal to go through and to be rubber stamped by the Football League, but when can you start bringing the Paul Wild's ideas to Vale Park now and start working with Micky and the team?
Well, we as I said, we got involved in the club about 2 weeks ago and completed all of our due diligence during that period of time. We're now looking to start to take the club forward. I've agreed with Bob as part of the heads of terms that we can start to come into the football club effectively from Monday actually. So we'll be in and around the football club with all of our people from different sectors and different businesses that we manage, to look to see how we can start to bring improvements to the football club. So we'll be around We have been around since Monday actually, but certainly we could say we've been around from today.
Paul McGarry from BBC Radio Stoke has got a love for horse racing as well, so if you've got one in the 3:30 that you can help us out with, share the information with us. But welcome to Burslem first of all.
Thank you.
You obviously want to be involved in the football side. Have you got a football team? Micky's got a managerial team. Will you have football people coming with you? Will you have a board of directors that's going to work here?
One thing that I've done, and I probably have got this from my career, is I surround myself with talented people, and I don't profess to know the answers to every question, but what I will say is the team that I'll put together will know the answers to most of the questions, and certainly know what to do in a certain situation. So we'll be looking to add to the team here. Obviously I've got my own team of people that already exist, but they're not football people in terms of they haven't been around football clubs. I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. In fact, I actually think that could be a positive in some areas, but we will be looking to bring new people into the business where we feel that there are holes that we can fill, given the fact that we have a plan to try and make the club successful on and off the field. We won't be making any changes obviously on the footballing side of things. That'll be left to Micky to deal with, and if Micky needs to bring in new players, new coaches, new scouting network, then we'll support him in doing that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Of course, the supporters here, you've got a passionate set of supporters, and
I've seen that
for a long time. What's your message to them? You've obviously met a few of the supporters groups. What's your message to the whole majority of the Port Vale Football Club?
I think one thing that I want to say is that I'm very, very conscious that you've been here before and you've sat in a press conference before, I think, with another preferred bidder. My ideal solution to this, which was never going to be possible, that we could have announced this as a completed transaction and we didn't have any of the scepticism around, is he really going to disappear with the funds or whatever that may be, is he actually going to complete? So what I can say is actions speak louder than words. As soon as we can complete, we will complete. As soon as we complete, we'll start the work on bringing the club to where it needs to be. That's not a short-term thing, it's a long-term project, and I'm talking years, not months. Where we are is in a position to be able to do that. We're not a business that needs to plug cash flow problems. We're a very well-funded group. We're a very successful group. We're extremely profitable in a difficult economic climate, so we can afford to look at businesses in the long term rather than in the short term. So we can say, well, let's say we need to implement a new system of some form, be that online ticketing, be that a change to the matchday experience. But historically, the club hasn't been able to do that because it's needed to save its resources to pay the monthly payroll. We're not in that place. What we are is a business that looks for returns on the investments that we make. So everything that we do on and off the field, we'll be looking to look at what that return is. That return doesn't have to be months because we've got a payroll to meet come the end of that particular month. It can be years. But as long as we understand that there's a joined up process and we're going the right way, then that's what we'll be looking to do. So what I'd like to say to the fans is, hopefully what we've got now is stability, and what we'll look to bring in is stability. What we won't be doing is making huge sweeping changes in the short term. What we will be doing is putting together a long-term plan. What we'll be doing at the same time is telling people what that plan is. I said in the press already that the football club can't survive without its supporters, and I do recognise that the gates that we're seeing at the moment are down, probably because of the way things have been handled historically in the past by the previous regimes that have been involved in the club. What I would say is, give me time, I'll prove myself, and then I'll see you at a game at some point in the future. Some people will come back quicker than others. I'm absolutely comfortable with that. But what I say I'll do, and what I don't say I won't do. So hopefully it's a period of transparency, and hopefully when we're looking back in 1, 2, 3 years' time, people are saying to me, well, he does say what he's done, and then I'll know I've done a good job. People won't always agree with the things that we're doing, for sure, but they'll always be in the best interest of the football club.
Paul's got
George Andrews, Signal Radio. Are you going to be a hands-on chairman, or working day chairman?
Very much. I'll be here certainly in the short term, almost every day. People know I've got other businesses as well. I'm very fortunate. I've got a very capable team of people running those businesses for me, so I don't need to be in those businesses every day. This is a business that will require attention and will mean that I'll be here every single day. This business won't be run by committee. The decisions that are made will rest on my shoulders. I'll make those decisions where necessary. Some we'll get right, some we'll get wrong. But there isn't a situation where we need 10 people to approve a decision. It'll just be down to me, for better or worse.
Paul, Steve Lee from Sky Sports. You tried to take over Darlington earlier this year. That didn't happen.
Yes.
Given the scepticism there's inevitably around Port Vale, how can you convince the fans that this one will happen?
Well, this one's a very different situation. I was dealing with an outgoing chairman at Darlington that had an interest in trying to secure, even though he didn't own the stadium, tried to secure what he saw was a property developer coming into the football club, and he wanted to see if he could recoup some of the losses he'd made, which was, a fine position for him to be in. But that meant that the agreement I'd reached with the supporters there was that they were going to take a stake in the football club. I wasn't comfortable taking money from supporters, hard-earned money from supporters, in a business plan that I didn't think could survive, based the fact that we were laden in the club with a liability before we'd even started. So I pulled out of that transaction. This transaction is very different. I'm dealing with an administrator. I've already reached an agreement that I'm comfortable with. There was an appetite to complete the transaction in Darlington, but I couldn't reach terms. I've already reached terms, so I guess I'm one further track down the road on this one. I don't anticipate any issues around Football League approval, so as far as I'm concerned, this is a transaction that's happening. I'm sending my resources here every day and my senior people here every day from now on, which is a significant investment, so hopefully that, as well as the £100,000 deposit, I'm not used to giving away money, so hopefully that gives people confidence to know that we will complete the transaction.
Paul, Rob, Sixtown Radio. You talk about Vale being a sleeping giant. Where do you see the potential of Port Vale getting to?
I think, listen, I don't want to put pressure on Micky any more than he already has. I think that the club has the potential to be a championship club because that's where it's been in the past. I'm not coming here and say, Port Vale are going to be in the Champions League in 6 years' time. That's not where it is. We'll go as far as we can, and we'll try our very hardest to be the best we possibly can be, both on and off the field. So we will be the best we can be, and hopefully that certainly isn't a League Two side. Hopefully it's better than a League One side, but there's a lot of water to pass under the bridge before then, and I think what we've got to do is make the club a business that means that we're not all sat here again in 4 or 5 years' time announcing somebody else that's buying the club out of administration. What I do promise the supporters is that this situation won't arise again, and we'll be in a position where in 5-10 years' time hopefully I'll still be around, and the club will be in a better place then than it is now. Where that is, who knows.
In terms of supporters, how are they taken to you with your initial meeting?
I think I only met them half an hour ago, so it's probably early to say. You probably ask them that question. It's probably the easiest place to start.
Paul, what will your priorities be over the coming weeks and months?
I think it's really going to be reconnaissance, really. We'll be looking to try and establish where the business is today, which we've already done quite a lot of that work. And then looking at the resources that we have and saying, right, okay, how do we best take the club forward? Clearly, there's a transfer window coming in January, and I'll be having conversations with Micky, hopefully very soon, about what he needs to try and take the club as far as we can this season, hopefully to promotion. And if we can do that, then fantastic. And then clearly we'll also be looking at the match day experience, if you like, to try and start to look to put plans together for next season, looking at what developments we can make within the stadium, and I'll be speaking to supporters to see what they want, because I think that's important. I look at a business here that's got customers that are disillusioned somewhat, and I think that's something that we can put right relatively quickly, and if we do that, then I think we'll see a stadium on a Saturday that's got more people in it than it does have at the moment.
What about when Port Vale isn't playing football? What do you see happening here at the stadium on match days?
One of the things that attracted me, and this is just one of, I'm sure, many things that we'll be doing over the coming months, is I own a successful training business in which we train 16 to 24-year-olds, MVQs and qualifications, and one of the attractions of this was to create a training business here at the football stadium so that it's used Monday to Friday, and then hopefully to be able to give those young people jobs, say on a match day or on a conference or whatever that may be, to try and make sure that we're bringing something back to the local community. I've made a commitment to the council that that's something that we're prepared to do, and it's something that I support. It just so happens that I have a business that dovetails quite nicely into that, so that's something that I'll be looking to do relatively quickly. So the academy business will be moving here as soon as practically possible, following completion.
Paul, does your passion for football match your passion for business?
My passion for competitive sport is something that I've not been able to hide, certainly, and as I've become successful, I do have the ability now to look at different opportunities, be that horse racing or be that football, and look at it and say, yes, of course, business is fun and interesting to me. Might not be to everybody, but it is to me. But when you layer on top of that, either, for example, a racehorse or a football team, that just adds something that little bit special that you can't actually get. And seeing the team win last night is something you don't get out of buying a house or buying a hotel, for example. So yeah, of course, there's an added, and it's probably one of the reasons why I'll be spending so much time here. There's an added excitement, if you like, about the business of football or the business of sport in general, actually.
Paul, you say obviously you want this to be a multi-purpose stadium. Mm-hmm. Do you envisage then other activities on the pitch besides football?
On the pitch itself? Yeah. Not really thought about that in a huge amount of detail. I certainly see on the land and buildings other activities happening for sure, but not really considered the pitch itself yet.
Well, you mentioned the plan to develop the ground in this area. Can you give me details on that at all?
Well, we had our architects here last week looking at how we would best use the facilities we've got, how we best develop the facilities we currently have. That's the facilities that exist today, and to try and understand how that would make a better matchday experience. So they were here last week looking at that, and I've not seen the report back from them yet, but that's something I'm looking forward to receiving. And then the wider development of the land and buildings, of course, it's something that we would like to look at over the coming months and years. For me, what this needs to become is a leisure hub, so that the stadium is part of a much wider development based around leisure, and making people come to the surrounding areas of the ground on a daily basis, which will mean hopefully that they'll want to come on a Saturday afternoon to watch the football team.
Well, one of the concerns that supporters have had is the relatively envisioned small squad, 20 players, not allowed to bring anyone in, a few injuries and suspensions. Will you be working quickly to tie players down to long-term contracts and perhaps reinforcing the squad that we've got?
I think it's fair for me to say that, and I'll say it now, that all of the football-related matters will be down to Micky Adams and his coaching staff. If Micky come to me and wanted to do something, then we'd sit down and talk about it, and hopefully there'll be favourable outcomes for him, because, as I said, the club has done fantastically well on the field with relatively limited resources in terms of number of people. So that may but well be something Micky will want to alter. It's certainly something I'm sure you'll probably ask him when I finish speaking, but it's certainly something we'd support him with.
Can you quantify the amount of support you can offer to Micky at the moment?
Again, I think that's a question for Micky, and I think what I've said to Micky already when I met him last night is, as long as we can understand what that is, and we're not just talking here about players, we may well be talking here about scouting staff or staff that Micky feels he doesn't have at the moment that he would like to have, then of course we'll sit down and understand how that works, and if that makes sense, then we'll invest in that.
Football clubs tend to lose money rather than make money. Why do you think you can book the training here?
It's a good question, and one that again I guess only time will prove. I think historically football clubs haven't embraced changes in the business world that may well help them. I think that there's been issues around people treating football clubs as toys, which has meant that they've lost money. I think the days up to 2007 when people were treating them as toys are probably gone now. I think what we're looking at is trying to make a football club sustainable, which in the long term is what everybody needs it to be. And do I think this club has got untapped potential? Yes. Have I looked at other propositions? For example, a hotel that I've gone on to develop and rebrand as something different. Is that the same level of untapped potential? Yes, from a business point of view. So do I think we can come here and bring about change? Absolutely. Will that change yield off the field revenues? Yes, it will. And do I think that we can make that profitable? I do. Now, whether or not I've not come into this as a venture where I'm saying, well, this is something I'm going to have a play with for a couple of years. This is a serious business decision that I've made, and therefore it will be run as a business. And does it need to make profit from day one? No. But do we need to see long-term potential in the project? Absolutely. And is that there? Without any question, it is.
What do you intend to do to try and attract the younger element of the supporters back to the football club?
Well, hopefully, again, the academy is going to play an important role there, because we'll be involved in schools relatively early on. I had a conversation about how we develop the academy side of the football academy. That's something that I'm very interested in working towards. And what we've really got to do is make the club a fun place to want to come to. And that's about what we do off the field in terms of how we commercialise that side of things. But ultimately, the reason why people come to watch football is because the team are winning, and that's Micky's department, not mine. And certainly he's been doing a good job of that for sure. So hopefully that will make people come to want to watch Port Vale. A successful club both on and off the field will mean that sponsors will want to come and watch Port Vale. All of those things are squaring off a circle that's actually quite an exciting one to be looking at.
Have we got any questions for Micky?
I'm relieved about it now, Micky, that you're sitting next to a man who we spoke about last night, that at least now the false dawns have gone.
George, the only thing I'm really relieved about, Paul being a Sheffield Wednesday fan, is that our fifth new kit of this season is not going to be blue and white stripes.
Just to give you confidence, but he said, obviously someone alluded to just earlier about the fact we've got the injuries again from last night, suspensions and that, and obviously we've had some dialogue with Paul. Maybe there is some light at the end of the tunnel for you now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that as you've heard there, Paul sounds very impressive to me, and all the things that we talked about last night, and it was only a very, very brief conversation, but certainly I'm excited about working with him, and certainly understands that we've got a very, very small squad at the moment and it may need strengthening, and like he says, I'll have to sit down with him at a later date and discuss that and see what we can do.
Okay, ladies and gents.
Can I just make one more thing clear, just for the avoidance of doubt? Paul has spoken quite a bit about redevelopment. Let me just make absolutely clear, Stoke City Council, who, as you know, are the debenture holder here, have made it a condition of any sale that we apply a restrictive covenant to ensure that the primary activity on this site will continue to be football in the long term. Paul didn't even flinch at that, because that's also his primary motive for this site. So I wouldn't like there to be any misunderstanding that we're talking about a property developer rather than a football club. And whilst I'm talking about Stoke City Council, I would like to make the point that without their support we wouldn't be here today. This club would have closed down. The council have been magnificent in supporting the initial funding of the administration. They know they're going to take a bad debt on their capital, but they will get all their funding costs back and a proportion of their capital, and they are also very keen to work with Paul and his new company going forward to make sure that this venue works for the city as well as working for Paul, and I think there's a mutual interest there in working together going forward.
Sure.
Bob, excuse me, Bob, can you just clarify to everybody about the players' contracts as well?
Oh yes, the players' contracts. Micky agreed to sign various players prior to the start of the season, many of them on 2-year contracts. Because we didn't know for certain at the start of the football season that we would find a buyer, I gave a commitment to the Football League that the administrators would trade Port Vale throughout this season. And so we asked the players to sign amended contracts just to run for this one football season. When we conclude the deal with Paul, the original contracts that Micky had agreed to will revert, and there will be a TUPE transfer. In other words, the Employment Rights Act will kick in, based on the original contract lengths. So the original contracts that Micky had negotiated will be reinstated, and Paul's new company will take those over.
Okay, thanks ladies and gents. If the cameras and the photographers would like to go pitch side with my colleague Chris, we will have some one-on-ones before we go pitch side for photos.